This afternoon, latest research from Koforidua Technical University shows food cultivated in Galamsey-prone areas contain dangerous levels of cyanide and lead. Also, the Zaire government settles $709 million Eurobond obligation. Plus, the Peace Council cautions against 31st night doom prophecies. I'm Kemeni Amano, and this is News Central. The news starts right now. Now, food cultivated in Galamsey-prone areas have been found to contain dangerous levels of cyanide and lead. Research conducted by Koforidua Technical University and the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology revealed traces of heavy metal in cassava grown in Paming and Jadam communities in the eastern region. Now, these farmlands were reclaimed sites previously used for gold mining. Now, these findings, as you may be aware, raise serious health concerns for consumers, especially since cassava is a staple among Ghanaians. According to the researchers, mining residue wash into streams and rivers, seep into the surrounding environment, contaminating farmlands and underground water sources, thereby poisoning the ecosystem. Let's get a bit more insight on this subject matter. I'm now joined by lead researcher, Dr. Yao Jao Achreko. Doc, good afternoon to you. I appreciate your time and your service on this matter. But explain to us the research to its full extent.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. As indicated, mining is something that contributes to economic growth. However, it also has other side effects. So, per our background as ensuring that the foods that people consume are safe, we decided to embark on a research to find out if the lands that have been reclaimed are being put to use. And if they are being put to use, how safe are the commodities or crops coming from these lands? That prompted us to sample some areas in the eastern region that has been reclaimed and have been put to use for cultivation of crops for consumption. So the focus actually looked at cassava because we realized that some of these lands were used for cultivation of cassava. So 2 towns in the Asante-Achin part of the eastern region was identified, and samples that were cultivated on these lands were taken, and then lab analysis were undertaken on them. We looked at the nutritional composition, we looked at the heavy metals, then we looked at the cyanide content. And the fortunate thing is we had one that has been reclaimed for over 5 years. We had one that was reclaimed for about 3 years. And after the analysis, it came out that in terms of nutritional composition, comparing the reclaimed and the non-mined, that is the site that has not been subjected to mining, we realized that the nutritional composition when it comes to the proteins, the carbohydrates, the ash, and other components were comparable, meaning that there were not so much differences in terms of their concentration or composition. But when it comes to the heavy metals, they all had high amount of heavy metals, but they were within acceptable limits. It was only cyanide and lead that were found to be high. And per the data that we got, we realized that the mine sites that were reclaimed over a longer period of time had reduced amount of this cyanide and lead. However, the one that were reclaimed for a very short time and being put to use for cultivation of these crops had high amount of what? The cyanide. I must also acknowledge that both the reclaimed and the non-mined sites had levels that were above acceptable levels, which means that if people consume crops that are produced from the non-mined sites, the higher tendency of having issues when it comes to the effect lead and cyanide
Doc,
had on
what
the
this
human
research,
health.
indeed, what this research is telling us is that even for the non-mining areas, because the ecosystem is poisoned, the soil there also becomes poisoned.
Exactly.
And then that's disturbing, isn't it?
Yes, that is very disturbing. And we need to intensify work or the efforts we are putting in place having to do with the mining activities, putting it under control. It is very disturbing. It means some time to come, the commodities we have on our markets will all be polluted, people consume, and they will have issues with cancer, respiratory issues, and what have you.
I see. And in terms of the area of study, how extensive was it in the Eastern region?
So with the area of study, we looked at, there are other areas that have been reclaimed, but where they have put it into extensive use, that is the land being used for cultivation, because this one we are talking about has been used for about 3 to 5 years, which means even to some extent we expect that the continual use would reduce the level of the cyanide and even the lead that is present. But after 5 years, still you have levels that are above acceptable levels. So it means before we even put it to use, we need to ensure that the period of reclamation is being extended, or we place a bound on how soon it should be used for cultivation of crops.
I see.
The intention has been used for production of teak or cultivation of teak and other tree crops. But this is the case, the residents are now using it for annual crops that are being used for consumption.
I see. And so do you suspect, based on the outcome of your research, do you suspect that this could be replicated in other mining communities outside of your area of study?
Yes, it is very important that we do same in other areas to see the effect. The land topography may be different in terms of leaching of some of these minerals down the soil surface could be something that vary from one area to another. So it is very important. In order not to also create fear, it is important to do across the country and find out the areas that have been reclaimed. Are they having the same high levels of some of these lead and even the cyanide to ensure that the foods that are being produced in these areas are safe? It is very important we extend the research to other areas.
What are the potential health risks of consuming food items or food crops from these areas or with such high levels of cyanide and lead?
Yes, so lead and cyanide, their toxicity is very bad. And in most cases, you are likely to have some mental issues, even some deformities when it comes to unborn kids or infants, or some of the things that will happen. Sometimes you can even talk about cancer, headache, dizziness that people experience are all part of some of the effects that when you consume foods that are contaminated with lead, you are likely to encounter. Even respiratory issues, then sometimes it affects your neurological function, as in how you respond, the brain function or cognitive development are all being affected when foods containing these metals or these substances are being consumed.
I see. So finally, we know that the government is doing a lot of work sending illegal miners out of certain places they shouldn't be. What would be your advice based on the outcome of your research on how to heal the land?
Yes, so with the reclamation activity, it is important we do. By then, it will be good to also use other natural substances to be able to reclaim. We can think of the sawdust, we can think of the ash that we can use to reclaim after that. And we need to also leave it for a longer period. So what it means is after the reclamation, possibly the government must restrict the residents of those areas from cultivating and such places should be given to certain specific people for maybe tree crop production that may not have direct consumption into our food system. This would be my recommendation if we mean to reclaim those land that have been polluted already.
Dr. Yajawa Cherko, lead researcher, thank you so much for talking to us this afternoon. We'll stay on illegal mining because NIMO's task force currently operating in the eastern region have raided some notorious illegal mining sites at Achim Abodom in the Kwayabibrim municipality. During the race, the task force immobilized 4 excavators by removing their monitors or control boards due to absence of low-bed services. The team also seized a generator set, 1 pump action gun with 5 cartridges. To render the site inoperable, the task force also burned several makeshift structures erected by the Galamseyers. Away from that, the government of Ghana has settled a $709 million Eurobond obligation, marking another major milestone in the country's ongoing economic recovery and debt management efforts. The ministry confirmed that the payment was made on Tuesday, December 30th, 2025, using funds from government cash buffers, underscoring renewed strength in Ghana's liquidity and fiscal management position. With the latest payment total in disbursements now stand at 1.4 billion under the country's restructuring memorandum. This includes 2 earlier payments of $349 million each, in addition to the $709 million settled this week. The government said it will build on the achievement of intensifying reforms in domestic revenue mobilization, public financial management, and public debt management, while continuing to strengthen fiscal buffers to sustainably finance national development priorities. In a message to the public, the Finance Ministry expressed gratitude to Ghanaians for their patience and support, noting that their cooperation has been critical to the gains recorded in the recovery process. What this means for economic growth. Let's go on the phone lines now and speak to economist and professor of finance, Professor Godfred Bokping. Prof, good afternoon. Let's talk about the 709 million the finance minister wrote about today. How significant is this for Ghana's economic recovery?
Well, thank you so much for your question. Good afternoon, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year in advance to every Ghanaian. Yeah, so look, it's very significant, and I think the government has demonstrated good faith with the investors since coming into office. Of course, also building on the roadmap. Remember, there's a roadmap under the debt restructuring, especially with Eurobonds, which the previous administration successfully negotiated, that brought significant relief to us, essentially creating some fiscal space that gave government some breathing space, let me put it that way, for us to be able to navigate our way through the difficult stages of our economic life. So I think I commend the ministry for keeping to that, and to the extent that something that is due probably January next year, government has made good of its promise. But what is also important is to see the timing, because the exchange rate has been very favorable.
Right.
It's cheaper servicing our debt now than before, right? So that is also good. It's almost like taking advantage of the favorable macroeconomic conditions so your debt servicing in foreign exchange becomes cheaper because your local currency is stronger and your generation capacity is in cedis, your servicing obligation is in a foreign currency. When you do the conversion, you realize that it's much better for us. So I think the ministry has been strategic in making this payment. What is also good is that because we are hoping to re-enter the international capital market, even if it's not next year, to the extent that we want to also open the capital market in Ghana to investors.
Indeed. Which is what I want us to look at now, Prof, because when you reach that message from Dr. Forson, he also emphasizes issues of credibility for this country. And so to what extent does this impact our credit and fiscal reputation? What would it change?
It's very significant. Look, for investors, predictability is very important. So once you make your commitment to service your debt obligation and you're able to keep to that, it inures to your credibility. Remember, we lost access to the international capital market because of some of these things and the perceived default that was coming. So I think it's very good. And you will see from the government's own 2025 budget and also 2026, a sinking fund that has been set aside to be able to assure investors that yes, we'll be able to keep to our word. And I think that is very important for the government and for Ghana as a whole.
I see. But it also opens up, I mean, again, maybe I should ask the question, does it also open up more credit for us on the international market?
Yes, we need to rebuild. Usually when you default, like the preemptive debt restructuring that we did, usually will take you a little while to regain credibility, especially within the international space. So all these steps are very strategic, proactive in assuring investors that, yes, we are restoring our credibility. So it may come at a certain cost to us and all of that, but we need to remember that we are not an isolated country. We cannot say we will not interact with foreign investors. In fact, we may even open up our capital market, the domestic bond market, and open it up to offshore investors. All these things will all play a role. So I think that is what the ministry is looking at it from, and I think that it's a good move.
But we're going to have to be even more strategic. Do you get the impression that the ministry has a strategy when it comes to that?
Yes.
I see. I want to talk about the cash buffers. The minister in identifying some of the sources of income that led to the payment of the over $700 million to defray some of the Eurobond debt. He talks about cash buffers. First, what does it say about the local economy itself, but how sustainable is this?
Well, you have taken people's money. The understanding is that you needed to invest it prudently and set up a sinking fund so that when those debts fall due, you are in a position to service them. And I think that is good. It comes at a cost. There are trade-offs. For instance, the cash buffers, the money could have been used in constructing roads and all of that. You need to weigh. Remember that your credibility also matters. So all these things will come at a cost. Sinking fund comes at a cost. So you need to weigh. But I think given where we are and given that we restructured our debt not long ago, I think this approach will seem more prudent now. But what is important now is that government has also created fiscal space. If you look at our debt to GDP ratio today, which is around 45-46%, and then you also look at the fact that across all the debt sustainability indicators, which are more forward-looking, we are trending below the policy dependency threshold. That is quite good. What that also means is that government could actually go onto the market and take on a little bit more debt. Let's call that one responsible debt, so that they can invest it appropriately in enhancing the cash flow generation capacity of the economy.
Indeed, and Prof, in addition to that, would you also say, I mean, go as far as say that it is also testament to economic growth if government can afford to use cash buffers to defray debt rather than, go into some of the things that you talked about. The budget for 2026 is real huge, but I mean, does that portend economic growth for you?
Yeah, I think it for me, I side with government approach now. Yes, as I indicated, cash buffers, sinking fund, they have their own trade-offs, opportunity cost and all of that. But I think when we weigh it, is better we are on track with the payment of our debt rather than also going to, previously we were doing rollover. You take fresh debt to retire maturing debt. Government is moving away gradually from that, especially with the Eurobond. But this also, given that the CD has strengthened against the USD, servicing your foreign debt becomes a little cheaper, and therefore we are taking advantage. So looking at that from risk management point of view, I think that is the way to go. That is the way to go. And as I also indicated, there's a possibility others will say this will crowd out development spending.
Right.
I encourage government to do responsible borrowing because they have created fiscal space so that we can use that responsible borrowing to finance critical infrastructure with higher value for money. Because we need to, where we are, we need to act at scale. We don't need to go at a snail pace. Otherwise, by the time development will reach some people in some parts of this country, death would have taken them away. So we need to act at scale. The fiscal space that government has created, we need to use it responsibly. Okay, so some level of borrowing would have to be done 2026, 2027, and beyond, but government should be prudent. And whatever CD or dollar that we take, we must make sure we are investing them in the productive sectors of the economy with higher value for money. That way, our borrowing can be justified by the economic fundamentals. Let's move away from what we've done in the past, in the last couple of years or almost decades. Let's rewrite the story. Let's do things right. We can never do without borrowing. No government can do without borrowing, given our economic fundamentals. But I think responsible borrowing and investing them in creating assets that would enhance the cash flow generation capacity of this economy, that is the way we need to go.
Perfect. We'll end our conversation here. Thank you so much for talking to us. Professor Godfrey Bokpin is an economist. We've been looking at the latest Eurobond debt payments. Now, away from that, the National Peace Council has renewed its appeal to prophets, evangelists, and other Christian leaders to exercise restraint and responsibility in the delivery of prophecies during 31st Watch Night services. The council further warned that unguarded religious pronouncements could threaten national peace and social cohesion. The council notes that in previous years, doom prophecies, particularly those predicting deaths, calamities, or national instability, have sparked fear, panic, and unnecessary anxiety among the public, with the potential to undermine peace and social cohesion. As the country prepares to usher in a new year, the Peace Council is urging faith leaders to promote messages of hope, peace, and national unity, emphasizing that the right to religious expression must be exercised in a manner that safeguards public safety and garners collective stability. Most Reverend Emmanuel Kofi Fianu is board chair of the National Peace Council. He's joining me over the phone for a quick chat on the back of this. Most Reverend, it's good to connect with you again. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
And good afternoon to your audience.
Wonderful. I'll go straight to the first question as to whether or not these leaders can control themselves when the Holy Spirit has spoken to them and directed them to prophesy.
What you are talking about is the area of inspiration. It's true, God inspires us through the Spirit. But we have our human dimension also, which calls for control. When the Holy Spirit takes possession of us, it doesn't take, let us lose our own ability to control ourselves. So we are advising or recommending that our prophets, whom we have already talked to last year before the elections, we had the whole day's meeting with them about prophecy in the scriptures and how they should handle the prophecies they have. We believe that they have heard us, they have taken note of what we said, and they will be circumspect this time around in the prophecies that they make at the end of the year.
When we ask them to be circumspect, what are the expectations?
See, what we are expecting is whatever revelation you have received from God or from the Spirit, know how to transmit it to human beings. Know how to transmit it to the audience. And if it is always messages of doom, we should learn how to present such messages so as not to cause anxiety in people. Prophets do prophesy times that are doom, but God always also gives a way out, what we should do in order to avert that one. So it should not only be doom, but there should also be prophecies of hope, because God also speaks to us about hope in the future.
I see. And so how are you going to ensure, and by you, I mean the council, how will you ensure that indeed that agreement that you've had with the church leaders is adhered to?
The only assurance we have is that they have taken the word we have given them last year, and they have listened to us, because they are using, they are scripture based. And we have gone through the scriptures with them about prophecy. We went through the Christian scriptures with them about prophecy and how it should be handled. So we only hope that this reminder will let them also keep to what we have already discussed last year.
I see. We'll see how that goes. But looking ahead into 2026, what are the expectations of the Peace Council as far as this country is concerned?
Our expectations are to continue the peace efforts that are going on in the country, and to continue also our advocacy for peace with the various stakeholders, so that all of us work for peace and tranquility in Ghana in 2026.
Most Reverend, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you very much for having me, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to your listeners.
Absolutely. Most Reverend Emmanuel Kofi Fianu is chairman of the National Peace Council. You're watching News Central. I'm Kemeni Amano. We'll be right back with more news. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now, this afternoon, supporters, party cadres and the national leadership of the NDC have converged on Big Ada in the Ada East District of the Greater Accra region to commemorate the 44th anniversary of the historic 31st December Revolution. The event marks the 31st December 1981 revolution led by late former head of state, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. The revolution ushered in the Provisional National Defense Council administration, which later transitioned into constitutional rule and eventually evolved into the NDC. The commemoration is being held under heightened security with party faithful from across the country in attendance. We'll connect now with our correspondent, Stanley Ni-Bleu, who is in Big Ada, monitoring developments there. Stanley, good afternoon. What can you report from there? Well, Stanley is joining us from Big Ada, where the event to commemorate 31st December Revolution is underway. This revolution back in 1981 ushered in the PNDC, which will later transition into the NDC and then held a constitutional election in 1992. Stanley Ni-Bleu, who is our reporter on the ground. Stanley, what else can you report from the ground?
Yes, so Kamini, so today marks exactly 44 years since the overthrow or the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, led by late Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, led a coup to overthrow a democratically elected government. That is the Dr. Hilary Liman's party, the PNP, from power and took over the reins of the administration of the country. But I must say that that singular act that was perpetrated against Dr. Hilary Liman and the PNP had actually left a permanent scar on the heart of supporters of the PNP and then now the PNC, because on a couple of occasions I've heard the party and then the family of Dr. Hilary Liman arguing that the allegations that were actually leveled against Dr. Hilary Liman for that actually necessitated in his overthrow and the overthrow of his government were unfounded. But for the NDC, I must say that they believe this is a feat well celebrated. And so today, they have actually come to the Ada East constituency, that is Big Ada, to mark the 45th anniversary of the overthrow and then the resumption or the assumption of power by the NDC. That is the Provisional National Defense Council, which actually metamorphosed into the NDC that is in power right now. As I speak, a number of party bigwigs are here. The Vice President, Professor Jenano Pokwajiman, is here. We also have the Chairman of the NDC, that is Mr. Johnson Keta. We also have the General Secretary, Honorable P.C. Fiavi Kwete, and also the Keta, the United Cadres Front of the NDC. They also represented, as well as the daughters and the DMP for the Ada East constituency. As I speak, currently, the Vice President is yet to deliver her speech, but Keta, the Chairman of the party, is on the floor, as assumed the lectern to actually deliver his message to the people or the gathering. And then before Keta assumed the lectern, a number of messages were actually delivered.
Indeed, Stanley.
The daughter of the former president, that is Dr. Zaneto Ajima Rawlings, actually made a profound statement that in Parliament, even though the people had actually believed in the NDC and they have given the party that overwhelming majority in Parliament, it is not time for the party to actually abuse their incumbency, but it is about time that they govern with integrity so that they can sustain the position that the party had, the people have actually given the party or have placed the party.
Very well. Thank you so much. We'll leave it here for now.
A statement,
Stanley Ni-Bleu is correspondent who joined us from Big Ada on that commemorative event of the 31st December Revolution. I will say outside the capital city of Accra, because residents of 7 rural communities in Keta municipality of the Volta region are celebrating with joy as electricity lights their homes the very first time in history. This is expected to improve living conditions and stimulate socio-economic development in these hard-to-reach communities. But while power has arrived, residents still face major challenges with access to roads. Christian Yale visited the community and reports on both excitement and concerns.
For decades, these residents have lived in complete darkness once the sun goes down. People of Laoshime, Mamime, and adjoining towns only heard of electricity but never experienced it. Here, some children have grown up without ever seeing a vehicle due to the remoteness of their location. Until now, life here was defined by limited opportunities, restricted access to information, and slow development. The narrative has changed today, with electricity now a reality after the initiative of the Keta MP, Kwame Jujoli Gakwe. As darkness falls, electric lights now illuminate homes that once relied on lanterns and firewood.
When you see the plight of the people in terms of, the economic activity, they have no electricity. I wrote to the Ministry of Energy. They said they don't have resources to actually do it. They said we should go into cost sharing. So they supplied some materials, I bought some and transported everything. It was rainy season. So like the electricity people, we had to paddle them. And the community was also determined. Today, for 3 good years, here we are.
His goal is to provide reliable power to communities in Keta and boost the local economy.
They are farming community. They can go into irrigation farming for throughout the year because they have good water bodies around. They can also have fridge now, and their fish will not rotten again. They can actually preserve them.
Keta Municipal Chief Executive Wisdom Siade noted that the presence of electricity will address the high attrition rate of teachers, health workers and other professionals who declined postings to the area due to poor living conditions.
We have a cheap compound here, but it's not being used because there's no light to power the place in the first place, and there's no light for the nurses to use. That is why you post nurses there, they don't come. And the people are suffering. So we are very grateful to the President John Dramani Mahama's government that he has helped the MP to bring this project to this area.
There is excitement and relief among residents at the long-awaited development.
Because very recently, our school has been selected under the B-STEM project, which we need the power to power the machines that we'll be using in the school.
Despite the joy, challenges remain. Accessing these communities is still a major ordeal. I took a ride in the night on narrow and difficult terrains and experienced how difficult it is to move from one community to the other.
One must be very careful while using this bridge. That is how serious it is, and so they say that they are working around the clock to ensure that these bridges are constructed first, and then they would see to looking at constructing the roads to ensure that commuting and access to these communities are easier and better.
It's not easy for a vehicle to come here. Preparation is on course. We are lobbying the central government, and then God being on our side, the opening will come. So we are on it.
Government is pushing to achieve near universal access to electricity by 2030 by raising the national coverage from the current 89% to about 99.9%, one that is expected to accelerate socio-economic development, especially in underserved and rural communities. Christian Yale, TV3 News, Keta, Volta Region.
For years, the journey to acquire a Ghanaian passport for residents of the Bono East region began with a grueling 60-kilometer travel to Sunyang. For those further out in Sene East or Pru West, the trip was even longer, often involving overnight stays and high transportation costs. That burden changed this week with the official opening of the Techiman Passport Application Center.
Previously, the tussle to the Bono regional capital, Sunyang, was a mandatory hurdle that drained the pockets of students, businessmen and families alike. Residents who have endured this hurdle for over decades expressed their profound joy over the newly commissioned passport office in the regional capital.
People normally or usually travel far away from here, scenic west, through east, through west, all the way to Techima before they get access to this passport. But fortunately, the office has now been established in Techima here, which has reduced the cost people would have traveled from far away or distant places to get their access to this passport. But because that's been brought here, all this thing has been reduced, and more people will be willing to patronize it, especially the youth who are eager to travel these days. But because of inaccessibility of this passport cards or passport this thing, they are not able to do so.
As it is, we could see that it will create more opportunities, and it will also lessen the burden of the people of the Benue East. Initially, we used to travel to Sunyani. Between Techiman and Sunyani is 60 kilometers away. So it will reduce our traveling distance about 60 kilometers.
The Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs noted the economic boost this new office will bring to the regional capital, emphasizing its geographical location as a strategic hub linking the north and the south of Ghana.
Techiman occupies a unique and strategic position in Ghana's socio-economic landscape. As one of West Africa's most vibrant commercial and transit hubs, this municipality serves as a gateway linking the northern and southern corridors of the country. It is therefore both logical and timely that passport services are brought closer to home to support the region's expanding domestic and international engagements. This center will serve the people of Techiman and the wider Bono East region with professionalism, transparency, and excellence, facilitate legitimate travel, support economic growth, and strengthen trust between citizens and the state.
2025 will be remembered as one of the darkest years in Ghana's military history. For the first time, a sitting defense minister alongside other senior state officials and security personnel lost their lives in a military helicopter crash while on national assignment. As the nation was still grieving, another tragedy struck when 6 prospective military crews died in a recruitment stampede. As the year draws to a close, questions linger. Have lessons been learned? Joseph Armstrong has the rest of the story.
2025 began with high hopes for Ghana's armed forces, but those hopes were shattered by a tragedy that shook the nation to its core. A military helicopter on official duty crashed, claiming the lives of the defense minister, the environment minister, and 7 others, including security personnel. The incident plunged the entire country into shock. In an emotional moment,
these gallant men each served Ghana with distinction. And as we mourn, questions about the cause of this tragedy are only natural and important. And I want to assure the families and the nation that the Ghana Armed Forces has initiated a full and transparent investigation into the circumstances of this crash.
Leadership of the country broke down in tears, struggling to contain the grief as they addressed the nation. The loss was not just personal, it was institutional, historic, and unprecedented. Before the tragedy, optimism had surrounded the Defense Ministry. Ministry of Defense and Bema Camp were filled with excitement when the late Defense Minister was vetted and approved by Parliament. From vetting, he assumed office almost immediately, assuring officers, soldiers, and civilian staff of better days ahead. The optimism was followed by significant changes in the military high command. Brigadier General William Ejapon, now Lieutenant General, took over leadership of the Ghana Armed Forces. The Defense Minister embarked on nationwide tours of military installations, assessing conditions and outlining plans to retool the Ghana Armed Forces. During these engagements, he revealed challenges including the dangerous practice of mixing different types of ammunition, raising concerns about safety standards within the military. Just months after the helicopter crash, another tragedy struck. 6 prospective recruits lost their lives in a stampede during a military recruitment exercise. The incident reignited debates over recruitment processes, crowd control, and institutional preparedness. In reviewing the year's challenges, the Deputy Defense Minister, Ernest Brojajimfi, says key lessons have been learned.
We know of the tragic incident that took away our minister together with other senior government officials. The investigations, as was published to the entire country, contained some recommendations, and we have decided to implement the recommendations to the fullest, and that is guiding us into the year 2026.
He announced that 2026 will witness a massive retooling of the Ghana Armed Forces, covering the accommodation, transportation, ammunition safety, personnel welfare, and the creation of new military units.
We are taking a huge leap in terms of retooling the Ghana Armed Forces. All the three services are going to receive a fair share of the massive retooling. The Ghana Air Force in particular would have some new air platforms. It's important to mention that since 2014, the Ghana Air Force has not received any new fleet, and that has been very challenging for the Air Force. And so in 2026, we are going to have some new air platforms that would support the operational needs and capabilities of the Ghana Air Force. The Army would also receive some armored personnel carriers, what we call the APCs. We are getting about 19 of them for the Ghana Army, as well as the Navy would also have some offshore patrol vessels that will help to build their capabilities in order to protect the territorial integrity of our country. So 2026 is a big year for the Ghana Armed Forces.
With the military remaining the backbone of Ghana's national defense and territorial integrity, expectations are high. After a year marked by loss, grief, and hard lessons, it is a hope that government's assurance will translate into real reforms in 2026. Joseph Armstrong, Gold Alibu TV3, Accra.
For many women in Salaga South, farming is not just a livelihood, it is their only means of survival. Yet each planting season brings the same struggle. To bridge this gap, Member of Parliament for Salaga South constituency, Haja Zurera Ibrahim, has initiated a women's empowerment program which focuses on practical support for female farmers, including plowing services, seeds, fertilizers, and direct payment to service providers, allowing women to concentrate on farming and productivity without the pressure of repayment. Addressing stakeholders in Salaga, Haja Zurera said the approach is deliberate and noting that grants rather than credit will be better support for women to grow their businesses sustainably. I'll bring in our regional correspondent, Christopher Mwako, for a bit more on this story. Chris, what else can you tell us about this?
Yes, so the MP actually has been engaging stakeholders after launching a fund that seeks to support women in the constituency. She's intimated that agriculture is the preoccupation of the people within the Salaga South constituency and the Savannah region at large. And so it is good for them to empower women to also contribute to the development of the nation when it comes to security. She's also been calling on stakeholders to ensure that they give women the maximum support when it comes to agriculture, touching on the fact that the John Mahama-led government has brought in policies that are women-friendly in agriculture for them to be able to do well in agricultural activities. Let's take a listen to what the Member of Parliament has been saying.
This area, Salaga South constituency, is Gonja Municipality. We are predominantly an agrarian area. And the women here do a lot of the farming. They engage in cereal farming, cassava farm. I have a cassava farm. And they support the agri-business of this area a lot. But as you and I know, when it comes to finances, women are always at the bottom of the ladder. And you made the right observation. I think the last time I attended an event of the Send Ghana that seeks to support women in agriculture was sometime in 2021. And so there is clearly a decline in
Salaga South MP Hajia Zuera Ibrahima. Earlier was Christopher Marco, our regional correspondent. Now, the health sector in the year under review 2025 saw authorities shut down several unlicensed health facilities across the country. Officials say this improved patient safety and strengthened regulation within the sector. In a separate move, the sector recorded a swift public health response, particularly during Mpox outbreak.
Health fears resurfaced early in the year as Mpox outbreaks in parts of the sub-region placed Ghana's health system on high alert. Surveillance was heightened, public health education intensified, and border monitoring reinforced.
Over 10,000 cases of typhoid fever were reported in the Oti region, while over 100 suspected cases of meningitis resulting in 16 deaths were also reported in the Upper West region.
These disease outbreaks reopened critical discussions about Ghana's epidemic preparedness, laboratory capacity, and the effectiveness of risk communication.
There are some districts that used to have relatively high number of cases, but it's gone down. And there are some districts that have come up. So that brings to bear that we don't need to underrate Mpox.
Drug abuse, particularly among the youth, emerged as a major public health concern in 2025. The rise of synthetic drugs, often referred to in public discourse as red, shifted the conversation from social concern to national alarm.
That 5-10 minutes of getting high could be the end of your life. And so don't get high, rather work hard to contribute meaningfully to the development of Ghana.
The controversies surrounding Ghana's Health Information System Management Contract was also topical.
The disputes revolved around the Ministry of Health's decision to switch from the Lightwave Health Information Management System to the Ghana Health Information Management System. Critics, however, questioned the lack of transparency and accountability in the contract switch, demanding an audit report to justify the transition. The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association went on strike due to the government's delay in implementing the 2024 collective agreement, which promised improved allowances, incentives, and working conditions. The government cited budget constraints, stating that implementing the agreement would disrupt the 2025 national budget, and proposed deferring implementation to 2026, which the GRNMA rejected.
At this point in time, we must save ourselves in terms of getting what is due us financially.
In 2025 also, the country experienced a concerning rise in HIV cases, with over 334,700 people currently living with the virus. In 2024, there were 15,200 new infections and 12,608 related deaths.
The condom use is low, particularly among the youth. People now fear pregnancy more than HIV/AIDS.
Health workers refusing to report to post is another pressing issue in Ghana, with many newly posted medical officers failing to show up at their assigned regions. As of November 2025, only 34% of 463 posted doctors had reported, leaving 7 out of 10 without a doctor in some areas. The Upper West region is particularly affected, with 25 out of 32 allocated medical doctors refusing their postings.
We will give them additional 1 week to appeal to them, to report to their various facilities where they have been posted, after which we will do what we call validation.
Institutional trust in Ghana's health system was further tested by the Rich Hospital and the RAF issue.
Counter-allegations and official responses placed one of Ghana's most prominent referral hospital under intense public scrutiny. For many observers, the issue went beyond a single case. It raised broader questions about patient safety, professional ethics, internal accountability, and how health institutions respond to crisis in the age of instant information and social media pressure.
There was no evidence of fracture on her left wrist or dislocation of her right shoulder joint as documented by the medical records.
There was also the Tamale Teaching Hospital death controversy, which revolved around the alleged medical negligence that led to the death of a patient, Bavug Salim, on April 13, 2025. The incident sparked public outcry.
How can you behave like this? So it means that you're doing worse things here.
Reports surrounding the Vice President's health sparked widespread public concern, speculation, and political debate. In a country where the health of public office holders is often treated with caution and secrecy, the incident highlighted the delicate balance between public interest and personal privacy. It also revived calls for clearer communication protocols when the health of top government officials becomes a matter of national concern, especially given the impact such uncertainty can have on governance, markets, and public confidence.
I express gratitude to the medical staff too, for seeing the right thing, for making the right proposals.
Taken together, the health stories of 2025 painted a picture of a sector under immense strain, facing disease threats, institutional controversies, leadership anxieties, social health challenges, and technological transitions all at once.
Yet, the year also marked a shift. Ghanaians became more vocal, more informed, and more critical in demanding proper health standards. Sarah Apenko, TV3 News, Accra.
And in the studio, I'm Kemeni Amano, and this is News Central, the very final edition for the year 2025. Thank you for your company all 365 days of watching television here on TV3. I am Kemeni Amano. I will see you again next year. Bye-bye.